Hello everyone. This is Shilpa Bhoraskar, and I'm thrilled to welcome you today to today's session. So we have a very special guest with us, Jeremy Sherr. Jeremy is a globally renowned homeopath, educator, and author with over 4 decades of experience in the field. He began his formal homeopathic studies in London at the College of Homeopathy, and he holds a degree in acupuncture as well. So, Jeremy is the founder of the Dynamis School. This is the longest running postgraduate homeopathy course in the world, and he has taught homeopathy extensively across Europe, North America, Asia, and Africa. So, he's made significant contributions to homeopathic literature. He's proved over 40 plus new homeopathic remedies. Now he's currently working on a series of books on the noble gases. He's the author of Q-Rep, which is the repertory of mental qualities. And in addition to all these academic and literary achievements, Jeremy and his wife Camila founded the Homeopathy for Health in Africa, providing homeopathic care through 20 clinics in Tanzania, treating over 7,000 plus patients. So today, Jeremy will share a fascinating case study he solved using our HomeoQuest software and QRep. So please join me in welcoming Jeremy Sherr.
Thank you so much, Shilpa. It's always fun to make a program with you. So today I just wanted to share a case and a bit of how to analyze, repertorize the cases. It should be interesting. So let's just go and check it out. All right, Shilpa. So can you see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Because I'm in Africa, sometimes the internet comes and goes, but we will do our best to make it work. So this is a man aged 49, and I spoke to his wife first because he was in a situation of some stress. And the wife told that he's a pilot. He was in the Air Force. He's a very conservative guy, not emotional. He says what he feels, but he stays in the background. And he worked in radar. And during this time, they were monitoring apparently a UFO. And suddenly he went missing for 2 days. And he has no memory at all of what happened during this time. And every time he talks about it, he starts crying, and he's never been well since. He's very upset about this whole thing. And after it happened, he lost a lot of memory. Usually he doesn't cry, never cried before, but he was so scared after this episode, whatever, if it was true or not, I can't tell you, but he tells that he was kidnapped by a UFO. Anyway, he became paralyzed with terror. And all he says all the time is, I can't talk about it, I'm paralyzed with terror. So his life kind of came to a stop a bit after that. Now he's obsessed with UFOs, obsessed with the universe, with Stephen Hawking. He says, space is so vast. How do they get from here to there? He freaks out about the size of the universe. He thinks of life beyond the universe, how people travel. Is there life outside the solar system? Now, generally, he has a sense of righteousness and truth. He never lies. He says people should be honest. Humans on Earth are a gross species. The comet should hit the Earth. It would be great to start things over because people can't get trusted. He sits very quietly, he observes, he analyzes, he sees everything, he knows everything in his environment. He's so aware of what he does, so aware and meticulous. He's an aeroplane mechanic. Everybody trusts him with his life, their life with him. And he's an excellent pilot, very cool in emergency. If the engine fails at 300 feet, everybody else would jump, but he just stays cool in an emergency. He's the person you want to be with. He's a hero. But never lie to him or be untruthful. If you do, you are out of his life. He won't forget it. He's a very deep feeling person. He gets hurt easily, but he's a great guy. He'll sit up all night feeding abandoned animals. He's a very devoted person. Yet he feels human beings should be destroyed by a comet or anthrax. People are so disgusting, they destroy their ecology, they're not honest, there's no integrity. So he's full of anger and resentment inside about that. He's a quiet, sullen man, but if he trusts you, he's the life of the party funny. Great sense of humor, and he'll never turn you down. If he's your friend, he will give you his car or his shirt. He loves flying, it becomes him. He's a bird. Any airplane suits him. He's completely fearless in storms and difficult situations. Flying is his passion. He's the only son. His father and mother were strict and unfair, very controlling. He doesn't go out with the guys. He doesn't relate to men. He fits in with women better. He's very responsible. He said you can't let the kids fall or anything happen to him. Then I spoke to him, and he tells that he was born on a farm. All his life was a farm, but he never got any love. They just said, do your chores. They were wonderful parents, but not affectionate. He never studied, but he got good grades. He's intolerant of imperfection. I see a fault and dislike it. I hate it if something doesn't work right, and it's supposed to. If it didn't go right, he'd smash it and go and buy another one. I always fix machines. I'm frustrated with things that are built not to the standard of 20 years ago. Today, you chuck the whole thing a waste. It's a throwaway society. He loved airplanes since he was little, always felt so different from the family on the universe and life's creation, so different from their ideas. He always felt different, an outsider. At 16, he had a car accident. He saw a car coming at him from the side and he swerved, but it turned out there was no car, and it's as if he'd had a time lapse of 2 minutes into the future where he saw his own car coming at him. He went to the Air Force, worked in the radars, tracked a UFO. It would go thousands of miles per hour and then make a 90-degree turn suddenly. And he said this was verified by NORAD, whoever they are. He says, I believe in UFOs. I saw the object land. And then there was a pause and he just lost the day of his life. I don't remember anything. It made my mind crazy. The more I think of it, the more my mind goes round and round and round. I don't tell people. I'm trying to remember that period of time. I remember being on a knoll there and looking back to the object, but I don't remember moving on from there. The next morning, I was back in the barracks, but the fact that I can't remember is so prominent. Flying and skydiving scared me to death for many years, but I had to do it. I go for high adventure danger. It doesn't ever seem like danger to me. It's like being a bird and flying. He jumped and his parachute malfunctioned and he didn't open, and he just opened it at the last second, and he felt in a vacuum and kind of got sucked back into his body. He was out of his body, back in his body, and it made him appreciate life more. Some incident. But now I seem to have lost appreciation for life. I'm bored. I'm not fulfilled, as if life is over, as if the adventure is gone. I don't fly or skydive much, just raising the children, the real world. I had to grow up. I wanted to stay Peter Pan. I'm irritable. I was lost the thrill. No fun anymore. I used to have too much fun. I just take care of the kids. I'm the housewife, a female role. I don't feel appreciated. I have no control. My life is run by others. I'm just along for the ride, doing what has to be done. Now, I can't decide anymore. When I fly, I always used to make decisions of life and death. I'm like a captain of a ship with no ship. Good in a crisis, I keep my head, I don't make mistakes, but I have to do it right. So I said to him, what do you want the remedy to help you with? He said, just to be happy as something is missing. That parachute thing, I felt robbed, death was imminent, no question, I handled it okay and was brought back. I have to face it again sometime. Religion, I don't know why I asked him that. He says, no Jesus value, being hung on a cross, are in all of us, and we are all that person. Work, I always said I could do anything for a short period of time. I never reached a goal. I didn't make 1,000 jumps. I didn't fly 10,000 hours. I can make computers work. I'm mechanical. I like to know what makes things tick. Got high cholesterol and lipids, likes cookies, pies, doesn't like sweets, chocolate candy, night sweats, sinus problems, works from cold, recurring dream, but he can't remember. The worst thing is being a housewife 24/7. You got to have a break, there's no time. I don't want anything to happen to the kids while I watch them. So he's full-time housewife. Okay, that was the case. I'm not going to analyze every little bit right now. I'm going to go back to that later. And when I, show you the remedy, then I'll point out the factors in the case that made me very certain about the remedy and are typical of it. So I'm jumping over the stage of analysis, which I usually do, and I'm going to a synthesis.
Okay.
A synthesis of a case, to me, is the most important part of doing a case. That's really the pinnacle of the homeopathic work and wisdom, because it means taking everything in the case and putting it together into one simple sentence. So we have a concept, exactly what Hahnemann says in paragraph 3, to perceive what needs to be cured. It means it's more than the sum of the symptoms. It's more than just the emotional essence, usually. It's kind of getting the general idea. And here is my synthesis of the case. The first question, though, I have to ask, is this one totality or two totalities? That's part of what I usually teach as a pre-analysis. And we have a whole chapter in that in our course on your website, Simple Secrets to Success, I think. So if you want to know more, it's there. But part of this pre-analysis is asking a question before you delve into the case is the case one totality or more? Meaning, is there kind of never been well since factor? So he had this kidnapping by the UFO, supposedly, yes or no, it doesn't matter to us if it's real for him, real for everybody, real for the universe. But did the case take a total change since then, or is it a continuum and just exacerbation of his whole life story? It seems that, he was always into UFOs and flyings and airplanes and all that kind of thing. But something happened where he got such a fright that he became paralyzed from fear. But he'd had something like that before. He'd had the parachute incident. So it's not a total new thing to him. There's echoes of it in the past. And that makes us think that possibly this is a continuum of his whole life story and just exacerbated and not a totally different thing. This is something you have to think of whenever you have a case where there's been and never been well since fact or something happened. You have to say, okay, let's say somebody had a normal life, then they got hit on the head by a brick, and now they've lost their memory and they've got headaches. So you think, okay, this is a random kind of thing that's not connected to their case. A brick fell on their head. Maybe you give them arnica and that solves cicuta virosa, whatever. However, if there are echoes of it in the past, meaning if that theoretical case had hit their heads many times in the past, then you're already saying to yourself, okay, maybe this is a continuum of the whole life case. sometimes it's difficult to work out theoretically. You just have to look for the remedy and see if you've got something that covers everything. And if you don't, then you can separate the case into two and say, I'll deal with the never been well since, then I'll see what's left with the constitutional issue. So let's have a look at how I synthesized this case and my understanding of it in terms of sensation and function. So the sensation is he's not from this planet. And the planet Earth is ugly, lying, imperfect, and boring. That he's the only truthful one among liars. So there's a kind of purity there. He's pure, he's truthful, he never lies, he's a perfectionist, and people are horrible. They might as well, the planet should be destroyed by a comet or by anthrax. It's full of lying, ugliness, imperfection, etc. That's the way he sees it. And the response to that is being aloof, responsible, perfectionist, loner, and keep flying, meaning keep detaching himself from the earth, flying up alone there, and in having an exciting time, but not among the muck and the mire of the people on the earth and all the ugliness. He just wants that to vanish. Yeah. That is the theme running through the case. We see it again. Destroy the planet, people are ugly, never lie to me, I never lie to others, I want things perfect, they just throw away things today. All that is, he's got a certain purity, and he cannot stand this kind of ugly impurity of the planet. The other side of it is that he says, I wanted to be a Peter Pan, always to have fun. I was having so much fun. And what happened now, the opposition to that is he's gone into boring responsibility, looking after the kids. And now the main complaint is he's suffering from a kind of chronic boredom, no fun, no interest in life. He doesn't want to fly anymore. He's just being a housewife 24/7, looking after the kids, very responsible, and it's very boring. In a way, it's the same kind of idea, because Peter Pan is that everything's nice and fun and cool, and then he's joined the ugly world of being an adult. He's grown up, and he's not enjoying it, not liking it. It's like part of that ugly world that we happen to live in. And never been well since fright. That's a kind of trigger over here. So that is the idea of the case. And then if you have a synthesis, the remedy has to fit that synthesis. Otherwise, it won't be a really deep cure. So when I do a case, any case, I always, first of all, case, then pre-analysis, which is generally looking at the parameters of the case, then analysis. But the final thing is the synthesis. And that gives you the idea of what this case is about. And then the remedy has to match that. That's the real matching of case to remedy, not just the matching of symptoms. I think I have a series with you, Shilpa, of 10 case studies where I show exactly how that happens, how to do a synthesis in many cases, and then match the synthesis in the remedy.
Correct.
Now, only once you have a synthesis do you repertorize or even begin to think of a remedy. Before that, remedies might come into your mind. Well, just let them go out of the other ear. Don't think of remedies. Don't think of kingdoms. Don't think of, whatever it is that you tend to think about. Just think about one thing, the patient. Yeah. What needs to be cured in them. Don't get distracted with other stuff. But now that we finished that, we can go to the repertory. Okay. And I'm using here in the repertory, these are some of the rubrics I thought of putting in. Ennui, which means boredom, no fun. Truth, has to tell the whole truth. That represents his purity, kind of. He's just too pure to be in this dirty world. So he's bored in the dirty world. He's too pure to be in the dirty world. Always tells the truth. Responsible, too responsible. At the moment, it's part of that boredom. Ailments from fear, that's never been well since. And maybe feeling not appreciated, which he said. It could be any of those. We can try them around in different configurations. As for the physicals and generals, there wasn't anything specific enough in this case. If I took something, I would play with aversion to sweets because it's a bit unusual. Most people like sweets, and it kind of symbolizes he's, not enjoying the sweetness of life, let's say. But now you can choose many these rubrics in lots of different configurations. That's what I always do. I don't do one repertory. I do different repertories on different clipboards, and I look around for something that's going to fit my synthesis. So in this case, I'm just going to show you one configuration, but there could be, you should have several repertorizations happening, and always just looking for that synthesis. So here's something we used here, Shilpa's repertory, which is a really great repertory program. And the important thing to me is that it has the latest data. If it doesn't have the latest, I need to have the latest data all the time. You can get away with having a repertory that's 10 years old, but really now that the complete 2023 is out, or synthesis 2023, soon coming 2024, and both of them, it's best that you have those, and this program, which is very easy to use, very friendly, has that in it, has the latest data in it. That's essential. So that's the HomeoQuest software. You can look it up on the website. And here's one repertory that, I chose among many. So I took ailments from fear, tells the plain truth, and ennui, boredom. Now I'm looking at these remedies, and let's see what's interesting. Alumina, no, there's nothing to speak for it here. Neither is there for like a quinine. I'm always thinking, can this fit the synthesis? What's to speak for it? Does it look like burrito carb? No. Falcon peregrine, maybe that's an interesting thought, flying and flying fast and danger and all that kind of thing. It is definitely something to consider. Does falcon peregrine fit my synthesis here? What is my synthesis again? Too pure for the ugly world, has to bail out of the world. Too much Peter Pan, now too responsible. It's not part of Falcon. If you study the remedy, you'll see Falcon depression, low self-esteem, self-destruction, that kind of thing. It has a taste of it, and it has the flying in it, but it's not an immediate hit. Heroin, no. LSD, no. Positronium, no. And all the rest of it, not excited. Hydrogen is a little bit interesting here because hydrogen, one of the main feelings is a great feeling of purity, of universal purity and connection with God, but the world is an ugly industrial dump ground that they don't want to be in. So there's a touch of it over there. Now, I would normally do another 4, 5, 6 repertories along the lines that I've described to you. But when things aren't working and I'm not something that makes me satisfied, I will go to the QREP, the repertory of mental qualities, which is my repertory. And I use that, honestly, there is not a case that I don't use the QREP in. Maybe in Africa where there's no mental symptoms sometimes, but otherwise, every case that I ever do, I use the QREP, and it will really help you to find remedies you never thought of.
Yeah.
And the thing about the QREP is that the rubrics are very big and all-inclusive. So you can put in anything that has a taste of something in the case. I'm going to show this to you because you're not using those smaller rubrics from the regular repertory. It's overall big concept, and that's available on HomeoQuest. So we did a repertory here of that, and these are the rubrics I chose. Birds and flying, well, we know that's a huge part of the case, right? And then animals, because he said, the wife said he loves animals, he looks after the animals. So that's the beauty in the QREP. It doesn't have to be specific. It's just, there's animals in the case, you can use it. These are all very big rubrics with 200-300 remedies. Duty and responsibility, perfectionist, and judgmental. Judgmental is, the wife said he's always critical of people if they don't do it right, if they don't do it perfectly, etc., like that. So those are the main themes I took of the case. Now, each of these has, 200 or 300 remedies in it, but the beauty is that when you put a few of, and it's very easy, very simple to use. You just, you don't have to be a repertory expert to choose these rubrics. So looking at it, what we have now, indeed, we have, over here, see falcon here, but here we see another remedy, which is Krypton. And Krypton is the remedy that I gave him. Now, fortunately for me, I know Krypton well, because I did the proving. And to be honest, as soon as I saw the case, I knew it's Krypton. So in this case, for me, I didn't need to repertorize, but you would. Here I've joined the QREP's rubrics with the other rubrics to show you how it's coming through everything. And that's why I wanted to do this case with you, and not just to show the technique of working on the case, but to give you a taste of this fascinating remedy, and I'll explain why I chose to do that right now. So I gave him Krypton 30C, and immediately you can identify some of the themes there about UFO, about flying, about is it a bird, is it a plane, no, it's Superman, all that kind of stuff. But Krypton is not just about Superman. It's just a nice symbol for the remedy which happens to come out. And you might ask yourself, well, how does that happen? It happens because the people who wrote the Superman comic in 1938 needed Krypton. So they wrote comic, that's the way it goes. What I've done now is I've taken the case and I've highlighted in bold some of the things that will help you to understand Krypton a bit and to identify it. So the Air Force is a big fascination in Krypton with flying and with air, and with anything interplanetary like universal stars, planets, red dwarfs, black holes, astronomical numbers, all that is a big part of the Krypton proving. Now, but more importantly, in a way, is not emotional. Krypton is a remedy where often, none of these are always, but where often the intellect overrides the emotion in a big way. That is, the brain is overworking and the heart takes a very secondary place and is kind of suppressed. It's all very clean cut from the mind. UFOs is definitely part of the proving of Krypton in many, many ways. It's very, very fascinating to see how it comes from ancient Egyptian, hieroglyphics of spaceships to even Tibetan stuff about it, and just always, fascinated with space, with planets, and with aliens. So if they're aliens, this is the number one alien remedy. And another feature is being paralyzed. If you remember, the star of Superman was, Christopher Reeves. He had an accident and was paralyzed from the head down. This comes out and it's often about being disconnected from your body in some kind of a way, like all in the head.
Mhm.
So Stephen Hawking is one of those people who probably needed Krypton, along with Leonardo da Vinci, Galileo, Lewis Carroll, Copernicus, all those people that are highly interested in mathematics, very good at it, in astronomy, in understanding how the universe works. All that kind of thing is a part of Krypton, is a very mathematical remedy, a very intellectual remedy, a very science-related remedy. So a lot of these scientists, like if you remember that movie, A Beautiful Mind, of Russell Crowe, with all that code cracking, that's definitely code cracking is a big part of Krypton. Krypton means cryptic, to hide something, to make a code.
Mhm.
So thinking of space, of the universe, these are all typical. But another thing, never lying, righteousness and the truth. Now, this is typical for all the noble gases. Helium, neon, argon, they all have that, have to be pure. That's their nobility. Too pure. It has to be the truth. If it's not, you can't make a quarter of a lie out of a little lie or anything like that. It has to be pure truth. This is part of the asset of the noble gases and part of their problem, because let's be honest, you can't live on this planet without lying a bit. That's what makes the world go round. So, but they can't see that. They can't play that that earthly game,
Mhm.
and therefore, humans are gross species. They are too noble, too pure, too clean, like a noble gas. Noble gases don't interact with any of the other elements.
Right.
They're always on their own. There's no interaction at all. And that is the thing with the noble remedies. They don't want to interact with all the regular people. So they sit outside and observe and analyze. All the noble gases have that.
Mhm.
Now, being a pilot and very cool in emergency is part of that. It's just, you're not interacting with the fear, with the fright, with the whole, you just keep your nobility, keep your separateness, and just, function in that kind of gas school-like way. So loving animals, that's an aspect of Krypton. It does appear there because mostly they are too super intellectual, too human, but occasionally you'll see another side of them that comes out the opposition, which is being very kind of animal behavior, particularly leopard-like. They
Uh-huh.
like to wear leopard print clothes. Quiet and sullen is part of that disconnection, and flying and being a bird. No love, that's part of that noble gas disconnection of no emotions. The intellect overrides the emotions. And perfectionist is true for all the noble gases, but each one in its own way. So when you study them, you'll kind of see how the perfection of neon or of argon or of helium manifest. Each one is a bit different.
Gotcha.
But that's, but what is particular for Krypton is time, issues with time.
Mhm.
Krypton is when in my books on the subject, I talk about how each of the noble gases in the period is a different dimension. So the first dimension is of line, that's helium. The
Mhm.
second dimension of surface is neon. The third dimension of cube or volume is argon. And then the fourth dimension is time, a particular kind of time.
Gotcha.
And neon is in that dimension of where time starts to behave a little bit. Krypton is in that dimension where time starts to behave differently. There is time in helium, in neon, in argon, but in Krypton, it changes its behavior. It's a different aspect. And they are obsessed with time. And they'll be early or they'll be late or something, or they'll have dreams of being late. This is something very characteristic of it. And that can include a lapse of time. But what is very typical of Krypton is thoughts going round and round and round. It's as if they are trapped in the frontal lobe of their brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's that period of humanity that went from being Neanderthals to being, Homo sapiens, and we developed the frontal lobe, and now it's just going round and round and round, and they can't get out of it. The intellect is too prominent. And another huge aspect of Krypton is being just bored with life. Often people who are very bored at work clock in, clock out, clock in, clock out, time cycle. Very Groundhog Day-like. It's a repeat, 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 the same kind of thing. And then there's no appreciation of life in that way. It's just time becoming very cyclical. Now, when he says Peter Pan, that's a fantastic clue, because the remedy of Peter Pan is without a doubt argon. It's the noble gas before. And that's a gas that's still a stage of development which is childish, playing, the magical garden of childhood. That's argon. And they would like to stay there forever. That's the problem. So argon patients might come to you at the age of 57, and they still, are in the space of being a 8-year-old kid who wants to just play and be young and live in that happy, carefree period. And the problem is when we move from the argon stage to the Krypton stage, it's like moving from having a wonderful time at 18 and partying and being the perfect moment of childhood, and suddenly you've got a mortgage and 3 kids and a bill and a job to go to every day. That's the transition between argon and Krypton.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to him. He wanted to stay Peter Pan. Now he's Captain Hook.
Gotcha.
Captain Hook being with the clock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. He's constrained now to the world of time, of work, and of burden. A burden of looking after the kids. Being hung on a cross, that's another aspect of Krypton for sure. Crosses are. I won't go into it in detail at the moment. And chocolate is another issue in Krypton, usually strong desire for chocolate, but can be aversion. But the main idea, again, is just being a housewife or working 24/7. Clock in, clock out, clock in, clock out, boring repetitiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a brief idea about Krypton. And I mentioned it here, some analysis of it, the glitches in time, Stephen Hawking's love of computers is another thing of Krypton. It will either, they've stuck on the computers because it's just like pure intellect with no emotion, intellect overriding emotions, and the UFO story. So, here's a little bit of a poem. I'll show you. I have lots of poems about remedies and all that, and I just took one little bit out of a Krypton poem. Okay. It goes like this. When childhood is over and lovers are gone, when youth's glow has faded, it's time to move on. Can't live my whole life like an old Peter Pan. Time to grow up now, evolving to man. Evolve or evolve, sir, a question of time, grandfather clock or digital line. You want to grow up? Well, spend time around, get a career, work daily grind. So that's part of a very long poem I have about Krypton. Anyway, follow up 2 months later. I spoke 2 weeks. He had a deep and unusual realization in the middle of the night. He woke up his wife to tell her. He realized that he's not from this planet.
Okay.
And though where he came from was a much better place, but it's right that he's here on the planet, and that's where he should be, which means he finally feels a bit at home here. Since then, he's much more emotional in general and more interactive with people. This made the fear of the UFO incident worse, but he's more aware of it. As if before he was in total denial, denial, now it is an acute fear. He began interacting very warmly with the mother's daughter, and they talked for a long time on the phone, which is very unusual for him. He has more joy of life. He's gone back to building airplanes, which he had given up on. He's less particular, less censorious about everybody getting it perfect, right the first time. A massive change. No other follow-ups with him, but I heard that he was doing well from the wife again, and that was it. So that was it. I wanted to share that with you, that general idea. And, just to say that in general, I have been working on the noble gases since my proving of neon. The first one was in 1993. So it's 30 years I've been working on the noble gases. The reason is because I believe that they are a key to understanding the periodic table and a key to understanding the universe. When you learn the noble gases, you're not just learning about that particular remedy. You're learning fascinating things about the whole periodic table, but more than that, about human evolution. Helium rarely takes you really deeply into the process of incarnation, and neon into the process of coming into your body, and argon into the process of growing up and what that means. So they are the most amazing remedies to my mind, and I just love studying them, and they've opened up a whole universe of insights for me, as well as being really, really useful clinically. And the reason I'm doing this case is that with you is that I'm just about my book on Krypton is coming out now, I think this week or next week. So I've been working on that for the last 10 years. It took me to write that. So I'm very proud and happy about it. If you want to order it, you can get it from Dynamis at dynamis.edu. That's our email. And you can order it now. It should be there any day now. I'm very excited that it's coming out. And it's full, the book, it's full of fascinating stuff, not about the remedy, but also about time, how times work, all kinds of insights into the universe, and also lots of poems and fun things and stuff like that. It's a book that you'll have fun reading. But I also, here's one quote from the book. I'm sure the universe is full of intelligent life. It's just been too intelligent to come here. So this Krypton, is I'd say it's just about the most fascinating remedy there is. It's very intellectually challenging as well. But I just taught it recently. I have my Patreon platform where I do lots of my contents, and I do lectures every month or two. So instead of teaching it from an intellectual point of view, which is quite difficult to grasp, it's full of riddles and stuff like that, I just read them all the poems from the book. And it was really nice because we approach it from a different way than from just symptoms. So I'll read you one little poem from that, from my book about that. Apple fall, Newton call, Einstein moving on. We diving through the mirror now and heading to Krypton. Kepler counting, Rabbi blessing, moon and sun revolve. 6 and 30 puzzles here that you cannot resolve. Superman or Batman, Joker or the riddle. The period we visit next is lying in the middle. Chambers pumping, heart is beating, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Dalai Lama, hieroglyphics, who could ask for more? All that is in the proving. Krypton is here lying in the middle. The period that we visit now is lying in the middle. And it's all about diving through the mirror, diving from the mirror of, Alice's mirror of in one side into the other side, from the world of childhood to the world of adulthood, from the world of acute disease to the world of chronic disease through the cross. So lots of interesting things there, and that recording is available for you to watch for a week for free. I've fixed it that way because I appreciate you being there. So if you just come to my Patreon, my Patreon is, there's a wonderful. I just did. We really had a lot of fun with all the poems, as I told you. But you'll find lots of other things there. There are loads of lectures, there are loads of videos, cases, Materia, Medica, poems, music. Let me see if I have it up here. Yeah, it's really full of stuff, and you can have a look at it for free. If you can get a week free if you join it. It's not expensive, and you get a lot of extra value. So there's the Krypton lectures, and you find all kinds of remedies there. The fourth period, Bufo proving, hundreds of stuff really, hundreds of articles of mine and lectures and stuff like that.
So I'll be putting those links below this video for people who would be interested in the book, Krypton book, and also the Patreon.
Yeah. Anyway, Shilpa, that's it.
So, Jeremy, I had two questions for you, just while on the case as well, which I think members will have as well. One is, why 30C potency? Why did you choose the 30C?
Why 30C potency?
Correct.
The most likely reason is because that's the one I had.
Okay. All right.
The best potency is the one you have. I could have easily used LM here. I could have easily used 10M. So don't worry about it. Really, just with potencies, I'll tell you the ultimate answer about potencies. Nobody knows. So just relax and try out things.
Great. And, this is fascinating. You've just inspired me to dive into the noble gases and especially the provings and the books that you have. But say, for example, we did not have your work on Krypton, Jeremy. This is like trying to understand what remedy would you have given this person?
You see, this is a very interesting question that comes up often with new provings, because let's say I've had loads of scorpion cases.
Okay.
I'm sure you've had some good scorpion cases, androchtonals, right? And then I asked myself, what would I have given before? If I hadn't proved androchtonals, and it's always difficult to answer. However, if you look at it, if we did the same case 40 years ago, you would say, anacardium or platina, because you don't know that it's not, that the scorpion is there. The moment the remedy kind of comes into the world, there's nothing that's going to replace it.
It's very much,
yes. That's the way it is. But before it's there, look, Hahnemann worked with his 60, 100 remedies, and he would have given camphora probably in that case, I would imagine. But it doesn't fit as well as Krypton. And it could be that in 20 years, somebody will prove something that will fit even better than Krypton. So it's like that. It's a strange kind of thing. But Falcon was good, interesting, but not as close.
Really. But okay.
Once you open the box and you let the proving out, the case come and they will. You can't imagine how you would have solved them beforehand.
Well, and then cases come as the remedies arrive as well, and
maybe yeah.
Perfect.
Lots of good Krypton cases in the book. There's about 13 there.
Wow.
And then I tell the life stories of lots of famous people who I'm pretty sure need Krypton, and I explain why. Yeah, so it's not such an uncommon remedy, really, especially in this day and age of computers and, astronomy and everything else. high mathematics, and where intellect overrides emotional.
Yeah.
Um, I saw one of my students told me about the movie after this lecture, which I'd never seen. And I watched it with my wife yesterday. And it's a rom-com, so it's unusual for me to watch a rom-com, but I did. It's called IQ, and it's a romantic comedy from the 90s, and it's about Einstein, you know, and it's a funny story actually about Einstein getting his niece to fall in love with somebody and manipulating so that they fall in love.
Okay.
Einstein famously said that gravity is not responsible for people falling in love. So, yeah.
But that was fascinating, Jeremy. Thank you so much. And for everyone who wants to dive into Krypton, and also Jeremy's, so you've written books on other noble gases as well in the past. So you've
Yes, so my
argon.
books on helium, neon, argon, and krypton are out. And, they're all wonderful remedies. Read them in sequence, that's great, but you don't have to.
Mhm.
So I guess the next one I have to write is Xenon, and that'll probably take me another 20 years. So, and it's,
We'll wait for that, Jeremy, because it's worth it. So thank
yeah, well, it's, I tell you, it's a really good remedy. My wife uses it a lot
you. Okay,
in cases, so it's good. Yeah. Anyway,
very much. Thank you very much, Jeremy. And
thanks a lot,
we'll get
Shilpa.
connected
See
again.
you
So
soon.
very
All the
much. Bye
best.
for now.
Take care.